Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's Nissa, the Hypnobirthing midwife, and we've got a really wonderful guest today. I'm delighted. So I'm just going to sit back and hand it over to our lovely, lovely guest. Hello.
Hello, everybody. It's so lovely to be here and to see some of you with your babies. And I know some have got babies to arrive. So yeah, the next hour, as Nissa said, is going to be super relaxed. I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction to mindfulness, what it is, what it isn't, and how it can be useful during this time. And by this time, I mean during pregnancy, birth, and then after pregnancy, when you have your little one with you and you think, how do I actually do any mindfulness whatsoever, because my life seems very chaotic and I've got lots going on. So just a short introduction to me. I set up a company a few years ago called Calm City Mind, and I did an 8-week course myself back in 2013, a mindfulness course, and then trained to teach it to other people. Mainly sort of went into businesses. And then when I had my little one, I sort of really thought, this is quite interesting. I'm going to need to experiment with how I fit my own mindfulness practice in to having a baby. So really got curious about it. Sort of did way more than I thought I was going to do, if I'm honest, and really sort of experimented with doing lots of practices with my baby rather than seeing it as this exclusive thing where I had to kind of, take myself away for 40 minutes, which was never going to happen, and do some practice, on a cushion on the floor in complete serene surroundings. And thought, how can I actually practice weaving mindfulness in a lot more throughout my day and using my baby with me to practice? So I ran sort of drop-in classes for mums who'd also just had babies, and I can talk about that a bit later. But before we even start, I am going to just start with a short practice so we can kind of jump right in and see what it's like. But I'll come on to say that mindfulness is very, very permissive. So this is really about doing what's right for you and your body right now. So with that in mind, if you want to turn the camera off to do this short practice, it's just going to be a couple of minutes. That's totally fine. If you want to get comfy and kind of change your position, also please do that. And when I'm guiding the practice, feel free to just ignore my guidance if that's what you want to do. If you just want to zone out and do your own thing, that's totally fine, because we've all got different things going on in our minds and our bodies. And it'd be strange if we were all feeling exactly the same way right now. But wherever you are, just placing both feet flat on the floor if you can, just so you get that sense of connecting with the ground. And if you have your baby with you, your baby's going to be part of your practice. So there's no need to kind of try and zone out from your baby or what they're kind of asking you to do. You can really just integrate your baby into your practice. And mindfulness is really just about coming into the present moment and noticing the present deliberately without judgment. So if it feels okay, just closing your eyes, or you can just keep them open and adopt a soft gaze on the floor somewhere in front of you. That feels better. And just really noticing your feet on the ground, your body sat on the chair. Just scanning up your body, noticing your shoulders. There might be tension in the shoulders from carrying a baby, whether that's in pregnancy or carrying a physical baby around. So maybe just taking a deep breath and dropping the shoulders slightly on the out breath. And just really settling into just being here right now. So you might have had all this excitement and anticipation about coming to the class, or you might have really rushed to get here, turned on your computer, had a really manic few minutes before you arrived. But just now, focusing on being here. So nowhere else you need to be, nowhere else you need to go. And maybe just placing your hand on your belly, if you can. And just noticing your in-breath and your out-breath right now. So not worrying about breathing in a particular way. Your breath might be short and shallow right now, or it might be long and deep. But however it is, just registering and touching in with your breath. And if your mind gets pulled away, distracted by a thought or a noise, not seeing that as a mistake or a failure. That's actually part of the practice when you notice what else is going on. As best you can, just guiding your mind back to noticing this in-breath right now and this out-breath. Just intentionally pausing. And then dropping attention back down to your feet on the floor, your body in the chair, maybe starting to take in your surroundings a bit by noticing sound, gently opening your eyes if they're closed, and taking in sights as well. And just ending that practice in your own time. And if you want to come back on video now, you're very welcome. We won't be doing another practice for a bit, and I'll tell you when we are so that you can come off if you want to. So that was just a really short mindfulness practice. Normally, if we were in a room together, I'd sort of explore it and say, what did you notice during that couple of minutes that we did a practice? And a whole range of things had come up. You'd be really sort of surprised. There's no consistent answer, but one thing that generally comes up is that people find their minds wander and their minds wander away to all sorts of stuff. And it might be, I need to do the shopping, or what am I going to do after this Zoom call, or I forgot to put the washing on, or it can be something completely random, or it can be something, a bit deeper. But if I asked people whether their minds would wander and we were in a room, I can guarantee 99.9% of people would put their hands up, including me. So a huge thing for you to take away from this session, if you take away nothing at all, is that mindfulness is not about clearing your mind. So that can be quite a large kind of misconception about mindfulness. Mindfulness is about bringing your attention to the present again and again and again without judgment. So really just choosing something as your anchor. So there we were using the breath, but you can use the body, you can use sounds, you can use sights, and then noticing when your mind goes wandering off, which it will, and then just gently guiding it back. So that non-judgment part of mindfulness is absolutely huge. It's not just about kind of attention training or bringing your mind to the present and trying to pin it there and kind of force it down, because that would be really, really difficult to do. And we all have minds that wander off all over the place, and actually that makes us very creative people, and it means we get a lot done. So we shouldn't really tell ourselves off for mind wandering, because it's important, but it's about noticing when it happens, and then noticing how kind we are with that wandering, and whether or not we tell ourselves off and say, no, you're supposed to be focusing on your breath, come back here. Or we can have a slightly gentler relationship to it and say, oh no, that's fine, like my baby just distracted me, that was a nice giggle, or they need something now, so I'm actually going to turn my attention towards them, and that's okay. I'm really sort of responding to the moment in front of me rather than having it kind of pre-planned and it's got to go in a certain way. So yeah, that was just a very short introduction to what mindfulness is. But as I've said, it isn't about clearing your mind, and it isn't always necessarily relaxing. So I think a lot of people kind of turn towards mindfulness, and I probably did myself, if I'm honest, a few years ago, because I thought I really want to relax. I really want to feel calm all the time and just have this zen-like state going through my head. But as you do mindfulness, you realize it's about sort of exploring whatever's going on for you in the present moment and doing that gently and non-judgmentally. And that can be so useful as a parent because we have so many judgments racing through our heads all of the time. And we sometimes feel judged by other people, and forming a community with other parents is a great way of just realizing that, you all forget to take nappies out and you all do various things throughout the first few months, and you're not alone in doing all of those things. But mindfulness is really about just turning your attention towards how you're feeling. So it might be that you're having quite a bad day, that you're feeling tired, that you're feeling angry, that you're feeling restless. And it's about really checking in with that and gently exploring it. So not in a way that's overwhelming, but saying, what's going on here? You know, can I kind of explore it and be a bit curious about it and not judge it too much as a kind of feeling? Because if we have the feeling and then we add judgment on top of the feeling, generally makes that feeling much more exaggerated. So, you know, you feel angry and then you tell yourself off for feeling angry. That, you know, sort of doesn't really help you. Whereas if you feel angry and you notice, oh, I feel angry, what do I need right now? What do I need to kind of respond to this? Then that can sometimes be much more helpful. So yeah, the non-judgmental part of mindfulness is absolutely huge, and it's something that you practice forever and ever and ever. So yeah, the other thing about mindfulness is it's not a quick fix. So it's not something you sort of do and you think, okay, now my mind is completely settled and fine. It's something that you really get benefits from if you practice it regularly. Which is why when I had my baby, I sort of realized that I needed to keep practicing it. It wasn't one of those things that I was going to kind of put down for my maternity leave and say, okay, I'll come back to mindfulness in a year and then it'll be fine. It was something that I really wanted to practice every day, just like you brush your teeth every day for your kind of, you know, health and hygiene. For my kind of mental health and hygiene, I do mindfulness. So it isn't always for everybody all the time. If you've got something really major going on in your life, then, you know, doing a kind of really intense mindfulness practice might not be right for you right now. So I'd just say, you know, take it gently, get support with it from a teacher if you want to, or just practice it with everyday activities. So although you can do a meditation like we just did there, a very short one, you can have a mindful cup of tea where you sit down and you notice, you know, what color the tea is, what it smells like, what it tastes like. You notice if your eyes being drawn towards your phone because you want to check your WhatsApp, and you just come back to having a cup of tea. And you might only have that for 20 seconds of the day if you've got a lot on, but really just bringing your attention to what you're doing when you're doing it can really help sort of ground you in that particular moment, rather than having this mind that's quite scattered and trying to multitask. Because staying in the present sounds very easy, but we spend a lot of our time rewinding, going back to the past, worrying about something that's happened, or worrying about the future, you know, kind of catastrophizing, thinking ahead, thinking, what if this happens? What if this happens? That's totally normal. We all do that. And particularly in the current circumstances, you know, we're all kind of thinking what's going to happen next, you know, checking the news, seeing if there's any update. But what if we can actually just come back to right now? Sometimes right now can feel much more manageable than what we think is going to happen. So this kind of imaginary future that we've laid out, or something that's happened in the past and that actually we don't really have that much control over. So we just need to let it go. So relating that to kind of more specifically to birth and pregnancy, I want to kind of start out by saying it's really important to say that mindfulness is just one tool, you know, and it's not necessarily going to be the tool that you pick in a particular moment. You might choose something else entirely. You might choose, you know, chocolate or or yoga or speaking to somebody or whatever it is. So mindfulness is just one tool that you should have in your toolbox, but I'm not saying it's the only one, because that would be kind of forcing something on you, and I don't think that's right. And also, I'm talking from my experience, and I'm very conscious of that. So, you know, everybody's pregnancy is different, everybody's birth experience is different, and everybody's experience as a mother is different. So really just taking what I say lightly, applying it if you'd like to, getting curious about it if you want to, but not thinking, okay, well, that's what I have to do, because your own experience is going to be very unique. And it's quite helpful to remember that, particularly in relation to the birth experience, I think, because you have a lot of people tell you a lot of stories about their own birth, and you think, and your birth isn't going to be like their birth. Your birth is going to be special, unique to you, and no one else whatsoever. But some ways in which I found it helpful. So during pregnancy, I really have found practicing mindfulness was helpful in just grounding me every day in my pregnancy right now. So although a lot of people say, oh, in pregnancy, you know, you should really enjoy it, I found there were times when I was anxious, and I thought, actually, I'm sort of worrying about what's going to happen next. I'm worrying about my next scan, my next appointment. So you do have this fast forwarding going on, I think, or you're worrying about the birth. And by practicing mindfulness, doing those breathing exercises and also doing body exercises, which I'll come on to, it really just helped bring me back to now and say, okay, well, what's going on with me right now? What do I need right now today? I need a nap, or I need some food, or I need to go out and walk with a friend and have a chat about this, you know. And it's sort of, sometimes we catch that fast forwarding, notice whether or not that fast forwarding was actually helpful, or whether they were just thoughts and ruminations going through my head, catch those, and then just actually come back to what was going on right now. A way in which it really helped me as well was, so I came to these sessions when they were happening with Nissa on Fridays, I think they were then. And I found out probably about 2 weeks before the birth that I was going to be induced. Well, sort of in the run up, they sort of discussed that I was going to be induced. And having thought I wasn't attached to my, birth plan, I realized that I was. And so I'd had all these kind of visions in my head of how I thought it was going to go and how I thought it was going to be. And actually practicing mindfulness fairly intensely in that 2 weeks really helped to just reframe things in my mind and say, okay, well, that was how I thought it was going to be, but this is how it is. So let's go with how it is right now. What can I do to help me now? And I don't think that can be underestimated, because we spend a huge amount of time, and a lot of our stress is caused from us wanting things to be different to how they actually are. So we have the situation that can be quite stressful, but then we have how we want it to be, and we want it to be different. We want it to be some other way, and that can cause us so much more stress. So once I'd kind of let go and thought, no, I'm going to just do this new plan, or just see how this goes, and be more flexible with it, it was super helpful. And the way that I did that was just to practice a lot with my breathing and to notice the thoughts, so notice where they went. So I really was kind of checking in with myself and noticing where my mind was. So yeah, that was kind of before. During the actual birth, I think I did use mindfulness, but to be honest, I think you will be in the moment. So don't worry about this too much. Your body will be responding to what is needed. You'll be surrounded by amazing people who will also help you respond to what is needed. So I don't want to kind of say, oh yeah, it was a really mindful birth, because I think you're in the present pretty much, whether you practice mindfulness regularly or not. One book that I did find helpful, which I'll put in the chat at the end, but it's called Mindfulbirthing by Nancy Bardak. And I found that very helpful to read before, because it had lots of exercises in it. So I talked about the fact that mindfulness isn't just about creating pleasant experiences and sort of only focusing on the positive and, trying to block out anything that might be tricky or challenging. They had some good exercises in that book, including one where you, it's called like the ice exercise, where you hold onto an ice cube and you notice your response to it. And you notice if you want to drop the ice cube straight away because it's really cold, or if you can kind of get curious about it and say, okay, well, now what's this sensation that I'm actually feeling in my hand? Is it, and when you start getting curious about it and a bit playful, well, I found I held the ice cube for a lot longer than I otherwise would have. So it's inviting that curiosity to sensations, because what we think of as pain is a sensation. So if we can kind of move around the edges of it, think, okay, I'm going to explore this, what's it like, what's it feel like? If it was a color, what would it be? Get a bit curious about it, and that can be a different way of kind of framing it that I found quite helpful. And then I think probably in terms of my own experience, I found my mindfulness most helpful after so when I had my baby. And you find that your routine goes out the window. A lot of people have talked about sleep. Yep, sleep goes out the window. And you have this huge life adjustment. And again, you can really notice those judgments and those storylines that your mind tells you about what you're experiencing. And particularly with sleep deprivation, and I've written a blog on this, which I can I'll send around. I'll put the link to my website in the chat. But with sleep deprivation, we can get into a lot of generalizing about it. So by noticing those storylines, I noticed that I'd sort of really say I've had no sleep for weeks, whereas actually what I meant was I'd have broken sleep quite often for weeks. But really kind of trying to catch myself when I was putting this totally negative frame across the whole thing. And can you actually break that down? Can you break down your experience into moment by moment experiences? So, applying that to whatever you're doing in your life, whether or not it's children or work or whatever, if you see it as this big block of time, there's this real tendency to say that was awful, that was great. I had an awful day at work, had a great day at work, whatever, I had a great day with my baby, I had a terrible day with my baby. if you actually just keep coming back to your moment to moment experience, it won't be all great and it won't be all horrible. You will have so many different experiences in your day. Some of them will be absolutely magical and wonderful. Some of them will feel challenging, but you won't have a block that can just be described in one single word. And mindfulness really helps me to kind of to notice that, and to really kind of look for the good moments when I'd be having a challenging day and say, okay, well, that was quite challenging because Rowan, my son, has been crying for a couple of hours, but, you know, but then there was that moment when he smiled at me and I stopped and I noticed it and I really drank it in. So really sort of flexing that part of your brain that does that noticing can be very, very useful. And as I've said, I really tried to practice doing it with my baby. So not kind of seeing it as this exclusive thing that I wanted to kind of do separately, but seeing Rowan very much as part of my life, and somebody who I wanted to kind of experience the mindfulness practice with me. So that meant, you know, really adjusting how I do it and what I was noticing and responding to his needs as well, and seeing it as this kind of wider perspective in which you're doing your kind of practice. So the other thing that I wanted to really kind of reiterate with mindfulness before we go into another practice is that although they call it mindfulness, and that sounds very heady and as though you're all up here, mindfulness is absolutely about the body. So, you know, it's about noticing what's going on in your body right now. So really kind of sinking into your experience of your breath, but also your body. And that can be hugely beneficial throughout pregnancy, because you can really pick up on what your body needs right now in the birth and also after the birth, you know, so noticing when you're tired and your body just needs to rest. And it might not be that you're going to sleep, it might be that you're just going to rest and you're going to sit in a chair with your baby and just not move and not need to put the washing on or not need to do whatever you think needs doing next that's really urgent. So really picking up on the messages that your body gives to you is an absolutely kind of huge part of mindfulness. And again, I'll try and remember to put it in the chat, or Nissa will send it around afterwards if I forget. But I practice this thing called a body scan, which is a mindfulness practice where you kind of tune into sensations in all the different parts of your body. And I practice that a lot after the birth, partly because, you know, there are lots of sensitivities kind of during the birth and you feel quite different. Your body feels quite different. But actually, if you're kind of taking care of your body, really listening into it, and kind of forming what is in some ways a bit of a new relationship with it, because it's changed, it's changing as you're going through, then that can be very helpful. We tend to notice and focus a lot on what our bodies can't do. We don't really focus on what they can do and how amazing they are, you know. And even if we feel absolutely knackered, you know, the fact that we're actually getting up and walking with our babies, it's a major, major feat. So yeah, kind of really helping that relationship between mind and body kind of after birth and in the postpartum period can be a helpful thing to use mindfulness for. Okay, so I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions at the end. Sorry, I should have said that. So if people have loads of burning questions that they've got, then please feel free to either ask them in the chat or you can take yourself off mute. That's totally fine. But I'll guide another short practice now, which is a body scan. So again, feeling free to take yourself off video if you'd like to, that's totally fine. And just getting yourself settled. So this is a practice that normally you can do lying down. So some people like to do it in bed, so they get that real sense of kind of listening to their body. If you're pregnant, I know that when I was kind of looking around for body scans, I found a lot where they guided it lying on your back, which obviously you can't do after a certain stage. So I'd say if that's the case, just kind of do it, you know, reclining back for a little bit, or lying on your side is totally fine to do it. You can also do it sitting in a chair, and you can even do it standing. So although it's called a body scan and people think you should do it horizontal, you can actually do it in pretty much any posture that you'd like. It's really just about tuning into your body. So just closing your eyes again, if that feels okay, but if not, you can just open them, have a soft gaze somewhere so you're not kind of fixing a stare that's exhausting. Coming back to that definition of what mindfulness is, so deliberately paying attention to the present on purpose, without judgment. So we're not trying to create a particular experience here. We're not necessarily even trying to get relaxed or calm. So noticing if there is that expectation of what's going to happen over the next few minutes. And as best you can, just letting that go. Just freeing yourself from having to kind of prejudge how the next few moments are going to be. And just really allowing yourself to be curious about how they actually are. So the experiences might be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, but can we just notice them? That's all we're being invited to do with this practice. And if you have your baby with you, just remembering that you can really attend to your baby during the practice. So if you need to bring your focus and attention back to your baby, that's totally fine. And that's really responding to the moment and being incredibly mindful. So yeah, just really allowing yourself permission to do that. So just bringing our attention to the breath again, if that feels okay. Maybe placing hand on the belly. And just noticing your in-breath and your out-breath. Not needing to control or manipulate the breath. Just noticing it however it is for you right now. What's this breath like? And then what's this breath like? Just breathing in and breathing out. I'm going to guide a very short body scan, but just remembering that you can come back to the breath if you need to at any point during the practice. So it's really important that you just do what's right for you. If you feel a bit lost or you don't want to follow my guidance for whatever reason, that's totally fine. But now imagining like your mind's almost like a sort of spotlight or a torch, and just shining that all the way down your body, down both legs, and just coming to rest attention in the feet and the big toes. Any sensations in the big toes right now? You can maybe notice a tingling or a sense of temperature. Maybe noticing the toes against whatever you're wearing, so the socks. Or maybe noticing no sensations and registering that. Just noticing that there's nothing there right now. Not looking for anything in particular. Just being curious about our bodies. And then with your mind scanning across the other toes in the foot. Just one by one, checking in with the toes. And on the next out breath, letting that go and just bringing your attention to the bottom of the feet, the soles of the feet. Towards the top of the feet and up to the ankles. This is an area of the body that we don't generally pay attention to unless it's causing us a bit of grief, which it may well be if we're carrying a baby. So just noticing sensations in the ankles right now. Is there any tingling, throbbing, temperature? What's here? And noticing too if your mind starts to go off and tell storylines about what your ankles were like yesterday or what you think they might be like next week. And just coming back to noticing your ankles right now. And on the next out breath, just moving your attention slowly up both legs. So the calves, shins, up to the knees, and the thighs, the heaviest part of our legs. Maybe noticing the sense of gravity and feeling rooted wherever you're sitting or lying, this part of the body having contact with the surface that you're resting on. And then slowly scanning up buttocks, lower back. And just bringing this spotlight of attention to the back and the spine. Slowly moving up to the backs of the shoulders and the upper back. Again, this is sometimes an area where we can store quite a lot of tension. So just noticing if that's there for you right now. Really giving yourself permission to move if you need to. Or maybe just bringing that curiosity to what's here. And then on the next out breath, just letting go of attention on this part of the body and bringing your awareness down both arms. So past the biceps and triceps, elbows, forearms, wrists. Coming to place attention on the hands and the fingers and thumbs. What can you notice here right now? Any sensations going on? And again, remembering if your mind goes wandering off, or gets caught up in a thought or a judgment, just remembering that's totally normal. Wandering is something that everybody's mind does, not a mistake or a failure. Every time you notice, that's a moment of being really aware. So just congratulating yourself and then bringing attention back as best you can in this moment to noticing the hands. It may be that your hands are holding your baby, so noticing contact with your baby. And any sense of temperature between your baby and your hands. And on the next out breath, letting that go and bringing attention to the belly. Noticing sensations in the belly. It may be breath, maybe hunger, or maybe your baby. So just noticing what's here right now. Not needing to analyze. But just noticing. And then slowly bringing attention up towards the chest region. Maybe noticing the rise and fall of the chest on the in-breath and the out-breath. Up towards the collarbone, neck, and the face. Just scanning the face with awareness. Noticing if there are parts of the face that are just holding on to or storing tension. Sometimes the forehead can be a real tension grabber. Maybe just taking a deep breath and just smiling on the out breath. Noticing what that does. And then on the next out breath, just expanding your awareness to the whole of your body, sitting or standing or lying. And if you're with your baby, just expanding your awareness to the whole of your body and your baby. And not needing to focus on anything in particular, but just taking this moment to be with your body and your baby. Just resting and being. Just staying there if you'd like to. I'm going to read a short poem. So poems sometimes resonate with us, sometimes they don't. So really just taking in the words however you want to. Let go of the way you thought life would unfold. The holding of plans or dreams or expectations, let it all go. Save your strength to swim with the tide. The choice to fight with what is here before you now will only result in struggle, fear, and desperate attempts to flee from the very energy you long for. Let go. Let it all go and flow with the grace that washes through your days, whether you received it gently or with all your quills raised to defend against invaders. Take this on faith. The mind may never find the explanations that it seeks, but you will move forward nonetheless. Let go and the wave's crest will carry you to unknown shores beyond your wildest dreams or destinations. Let it all go and find the place of rest and peace and certain transformation. So that's a poem by Dana Folds, which again I can send to Nissa or I'll put in the chat. So wherever you are right now, just reconnecting with your breath. Just noticing that flow of the in-breath and the out-breath. And slowly in your own time, just starting to transition out this body scan. So you might want to start by wiggling fingers and toes if that feels okay. Circling your feet. Just moving any part of the body that you'd like to. And whenever you're ready, opening your eyes if they're closed. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. That's the end of the practice. So again, you're welcome to come back onto video. If you've fallen asleep, don't worry. So yeah, again, be really interested to be really interested to kind of hear what people notice during that practice. So if people want to, they're very welcome to kind of write a word or two in the chat or to come off mute and say what they noticed. And there really is no right or wrong thing I'm looking for here. So there's not a like, oh, you should have noticed this or you should have noticed that. It really was whatever you noticed. So yeah, if people do want to share, you're very welcome, but there's absolutely no obligation.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Feeling nice and mellow and very nice and easy. Thank you, Ruth. That was really lovely. It was really, really lovely. I had to duck out and grab this guy because he wanted some milk. But what did I notice? I probably many things, but I realized how I'm very often onto the next thing, always thinking next. And it was really nice. I was feeding him whilst you were speaking, and it was really nice to actually be super present feeding him. Just just a lovely thing, simply, because it's, often oh, next thing, school run, da da da. And so yeah, so thank you. I think that's very simple but very lovely, very very lovely. I was just looking at his head, and I was like, wow, look at the tiny tiny golden hairs. So cute. How about anyone else? Anyone else like to share?
Thanks, Lisa. Okay. Well, maybe that people are just feeling too mellow after the body scan, but yeah, just kind of to share a couple of insights, I guess, in case anybody did feel any of these things. It can be quite common to feel quite tired when you do a body scan, and that can often be because sometimes our body is really giving us a message that we're tired, but we spend a lot of time kind of rushing around and our minds trying to kind of override the signals that our bodies are giving us. So, our minds are like, no, you've got to get on, or you've got to get on, or, but actually once we stop to check in, we realize we're tired. And that, if you are a new mum, is fairly kind of obvious thing to say, but it's, not to kind of worry about it. If you find the body scan makes you feel tired, that's your body giving you messages. And also sometimes we feel quite restless when we do a body scan and we think, oh no, I just really want to move and I want to get up and I want to do the exact opposite of what Ruth's kind of inviting me to do. And that's totally normal as well. So anything you're feeling is what you're feeling. So you might feel bored, you might feel restless, you might feel relaxed, you might feel the opposite of relaxed because you notice that your mind's going all over the place. Often when we start to practice mindfulness, we notice how active our mind is, and we're kind of slowing things down and we're bringing our attention to what's going on in our mind, and it can be a really interesting place to notice. And we notice all these different thoughts that we're having, or different planning that we're having, and it can seem like this kind of constant chatter of a radio. So that's not unusual either. If once you start practicing, you kind of notice how busy your mind is. And it really is about kind of noticing that and not trying to shut your mind down or getting annoyed at your mind for, all these things that it's trying to do when you're a busy person. And trying to kind of be gentle and kind with yourself in your responses to that. So, if we can be gentle with our own minds, that is a huge step forwards. Often the things we say to ourselves in our heads, we think, we ever said that to a friend, we wouldn't have very many friends. It's kind of, we can be very harsh on ourselves, and we can get even harsher when we're sleep deprived because our kind of we just have these judgments that become huge and very kind of convincing, and we think, yes, no, that is right, my mind is telling me that I can't do this because and I haven't had an hour's sleep, so there's no reason why I should be able to do what my mind is telling me that I'm rubbish at doing. So really kind of noticing those judgments and just catching them and trying to be a bit kinder with them and kinder with ourselves can be absolutely huge. If you had your baby with you, you might have noticed your baby wriggling around, doing lots and kind of calling for your attention, and that's like totally fine. Make that part of the practice. Noticing what your baby's doing right now and being with your baby can be a hugely powerful mindfulness practice. And like Nissa said, sometimes you can really be present with your baby in a way that you might not otherwise be. So I do run drop-in classes for new parents, and it can sometimes be a bit sporadic depending on what I've got going on. But I have just started a new kind of batch during lockdown because I thought it'd be helpful for people during lockdown. So they are happening on Fridays, and they range from free, and they genuinely are free, to a small donation if people want to make them. But there's absolutely no obligation, and people can basically kind of switch and change between coming for free if they've got a week when they feel skint to making a donation if they want to. So I'll put my website in the chat for everybody, and I'm on Instagram as well. So if you want to come along to those, you'd be very, very welcome. And I do short practices, so tend to do kind of a breathing and a body exercise, also try and do a practice where you can connect with your baby. And it's also just a chance to connect with other new parents, which is harder to do at the moment in lockdown, but not impossible. So, kind of really having that exploration with people about what you did notice can bring up loads of stuff in terms of, how you're feeling right now, whether you're tired or whether you're kind of energized or whatever it is. And I also do some movement exercises. So like I've said, mindfulness is one of these things that you can bring to pretty much everything, because it is just paying attention non-judgmentally. So you can do that with everything you do, you know, so it doesn't have to be that you sit down and do a 20-minute body scan. Really early on with Rowan, I practiced mindful walking a lot in the middle of the night. So, you know, when I'd be walking with Rowan and I'd feel that kind of sense of, oh, he's still not getting sleep, I practiced noticing the sensations of my feet on the floor, noticing the sensations in my legs, noticing when my mind went wandering away, and just coming back to noticing walking. And that's something I've kind of run through in the class as well for people in case they find it helpful. So it really is about kind of finding these moments that we can practice mindfulness, and not seeing it as something that you just do at the beginning of the day that you need to sit on a cushion on the floor for, and then you don't do for the rest of the day, because that's not really how it works. So I've cheated on. But if any questions,
Yeah,
I
I have a question. I'm not yet a new mom, so could I participate anyway on Friday?
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, come along.
And what time is it usually? Do you send an email? How does it work?
Yeah, if you go onto my website or onto Instagram, there's like a short booking kind of thing on my website. So if you book it, then you'll get the link.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All on Zoom as well. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to share that, Ruth, because you're too modest. So I will post it when I pop this on YouTube. I'll post it underneath. But for anyone watching anywhere else, it is calmcitymind.com for the website, and on Instagram, calmcitymum, all together. And you've got some brilliant videos on YouTube as well. So I really recommend that everyone hops on to your YouTube and checks that out.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I just have to say, I love the thought of having a practice that just goes through your everyday life in any small moments. Rather, all of my practices are separate, you know, half an hour here or 20 minutes, but actually it's so nice to do it as and when, and not have to find that time, which sometimes can't be found.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it can sometimes be really nice when you kind of find these opportunities for practice, and you think, okay, I'm stood in a really long queue, so I'm not doing anything. I'm going to do some mindfulness. I'm going to, you know, practice kind of bringing my attention to my breath or my feet on the floor, and you know, so it's really productive.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Ruth. That was a real treat for us. Really, really lovely. And yeah.
Lovely to hear, everybody. Thank you for coming.
We'll have you back again soon, please.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Anytime.
Perfect. Amazing.
If anybody has any questions that they didn't want to ask me here, but they want to afterwards, then feel free to just go to my website and drop me an email.